No one wants to go broke from climate change solutions, and I promise the videos today will be much shorter. For one video at least, we take a break from Pussygate and get into David French's piece at nationalreview.com yesterday, and I'm sure he was grateful to take a break from Pussygate as well, and discuss the economic sacrifices which cannot be justified if they don't serve the stated purpose. Or in other words, climate change is a fraud, and it always has been. Now, America's long hurricane drought is over, ladies and gentlemen. Hurricane Matthew smashed into the east coast of Florida and the southeast coast of Georgia and South Carolina. Did huge amounts of horrific damage, killed hundreds, if not thousands of people. The drought was, it was the first major hurricane in over a decade. Now, the drought was so long that just this past summer, the Washington Post's weather editor, Jason Samenow, felt compelled to write a piece making the case that the absence of hurricanes was terrifying. Yeah, it fits right into this global warming chicken littleism. Everything is terrifying. Everything is evidence of global warming. Too many hurricanes, global warming. No hurricanes, global warming. Well, what's that expression? It's from a totally different context, but the absence of evidence is itself ominous. In other words, they don't take no or we were wrong for an answer. I'm not making this up. A major hurricane had not hit the east coast of the United States in more than a decade, and Jason Samenow was concerned that Americans might grow complacent and that increasing wealth and higher populations on the coast would make the next hurricane that much more destructive. Well, 8 years of Obama has taken care of the increasing wealth part of that concern. But Samenow also wrote to assure liberal Americans that the hurricane drought absolutely, positively did not mean that climate change wasn't real. And when we say climate change, they're referring to man-caused climate change. As if. Here's the quote. Adam Sobel, a climatologist at Columbia University, cautions that the drought is in no way invalidates global warming predictions or the expectation that storms will grow more intense in future decades. It's always future decades, never in the present. It's always in the way, just over the horizon. Well, I mean, remember when Ted Danson back in 1990 said that we have 10 years to clean up the oceans or we're all gonna die! You know, the marine food chain and all that. 10 years, the 10 years was up 16 years ago. Everything still seems to be fine, doesn't it? I got a video coming up. Within this video, you're going to love it. The notion, from returning to the WAPO quote, the notion that the hurricane drought in the... Notice the choice of words here. Hurricane drought? Even when they're trying to even when they're describing something that completely disproves their hysterical claims, they use crisis-oriented terminology. Hurricane, drought. Both are weather apocalypse type terms that these people use all the time. This is no coincidence, I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen. The notion that the hurricane drought in the Atlantic has somehow disproved the consensus of projections of climatologists or climatology is wrong, because the drought is still a relatively short-term fluctuation in a single basin, while the projections are for long-term global trends, Semenow wrote on his blog. Close quote. Now, yeah, sure, everyone knows that short-term weather fluctuations have little to do with long-term climate trends, but someone needs to tell the climate change alarmists. Because weather in the form of Hurricane Matthew is suddenly proof of climate change all over again. Any port in a storm. In other words, that Rimshot brought to you by www.rimshot.com. The HuffPo, the Huffin' Puffers, the Huffington Post, pointed to Hurricane Matthew's unusual strength as a climate change indicator. Well, it was Category 3 when it actually hit the Florida coast initially, and then got weaker from there, so I'm not sure how you could say it was unusual. I mean, if there hadn't been one in over a decade, how strong did you expect it to be? I mean, using the logic of these people, you would expect it to be a Category 15. Because, why? Well, all that pent-up energy. I mean, there hasn't been one in over a decade, so it's going to really unload everything. It's like climatological blue balls. I mean, isn't that the logic in play here? A Slate piece made the same point, arguing that October hurricanes aren't supposed to be this scary. Says whom? Newsweek claimed that Hurricane Matthew signals the devastation that lies ahead after there hadn't been any in over a decade. I mean, they could say this about any storm. They could say this about any tropical depression. They could say this about any hurricane. And what if it just started moderately raining over the entire continental United States and didn't stop for 3 months? 3 months of constant rain. It wouldn't be spectacular, would it? It might be climatologically worrying, though. I mean, it's all about the spectacle with these people. And the bigger the storm, the more they like it, because it just creates a bigger spectacle to which they can point and go, "We're gonna die if we don't regress, if we don't give up technology and move back into the caves with Moonwatcher." See, the problem for alarmists, as always, is that the true devastation is always just over the horizon. It's somewhere in the future. Oh, but it's coming. This just never quite gets here. Time's arrow doesn't work that way for those of you who are interested in theoretical or temporal physics. See, the present reality never justifies the language of the crisis, hurricane drought. And as time marches on, more and more of the most hysterical predictions, well, they all fail. Now, as I promised a little bit earlier, who can forget this incredible gem from an episode of Good Morning America just 8 years ago?
In 2015, we still failed to address the climate problem.
We're going to see more floods, more droughts, more wildfires.
More fires. Flames cover hundreds of square miles.
Ooh, that's scary. We expect more intense hurricanes.
You expect that.
Well, how warm is it going to get?
How warm?
How much will sea level rise?
How warm?
We don't really know where the end is.
We don't know where the end is.
Dangerous levels. Agricultural
They gonna
production
try
is
to tell
dropping
you.
because temperatures are rising.
Ooh,
There's about 1 billion people who are
sick
malnourished.
kids.
That number just continually grows.
It's June 8th, 2015. 1 carton of milk is $12.99.
Gas has reached over $9 a gallon.
I'm scared right now.
And please do note, ladies and gentlemen, that Good Morning America was predicting the nightmare scenario of the year 2015. A year ago. Now, I don't know about any of you, but where I live, now I don't live in a hurricane zone, so I don't know if that's supposed to make a difference, but where I live, milk is still $2.69 a gallon, sometimes less when it's on special. Gas is at my usual neighborhood, the local Chevron, $2.85 a gallon, not over $9, much to the green extremists' chagrin, of course. And that's one of the higher rates in the country. Gas is always a little bit more where I live for whatever reason. Around the country, it's less than that, $2.50 maybe, or even less. So, and Manhattan's not underwater. That's another point to make, as opposed to what was predicted in this video. And you saw the young man. I don't know if he would qualify. No, he probably wasn't a millennial. He was a Gen Y-er, I guess, Generation Y. But still, you saw the young man at the end of this video, or the preceding, the Good Morning America clip, and he was terrified. He'd been convinced that the world was coming to an end in 7 years. He wasn't even going to get laid at that rate. The doomsday never happened. The climate catastrophe, climate-geddon, never happened. Milk is still affordable. Gas is still affordable. Manhattan's not underwater. In short, it was all bullshit. And it's always bullshit. It always has been bullshit. And it always will be bullshit. Because human beings cannot change the climate like green extremists claim. We don't have the ability. We don't have the technology. Why do you think we're not terraforming Mars? If we have the ability to alter climate, if we're that powerful, because we would have to be that powerful because the climate is not nearly as fragile as they claim it is, then why are we not on Mars terraforming that planet so that we won't be, as a species, limited to a single world? Why aren't we on Mars, turning it into a second Earth, or as close of a simile as we can get, so that we can move half the population of Earth to Mars, or proportional to the size of the planet and land area, whatever? Why? Maybe because changing climate is harder than green extremists want people to believe it is, maybe? Because otherwise, I mean, there's a reason why green extremists resort to all this hysterics and terror mongering and fear mongering. It's because what do the green extremists want? They want us to give up Constitution, give up our liberties, give up our freedom, give up what's left of our prosperity. You know, I always use the analogy from 2000, the opening of 2001: A Space Odyssey, of Moonwatcher and the primitive humans who lived in a cave, a deep, dark, dank cave, in fear every night of the killer leopard showing up and grabbing them and dragging them away to eat them. And that's what the green extremists want. They want to herd us all into caves, or well, that's not much of an exaggeration. You know, the stack 'em and pack 'em Soviet era style high rises, and come in just compacted urban areas, almost like concentration camps. Agenda 21. You know, we got to get rid of the exurbs. We got to get rid of the suburbs. We got to get rid of urban sprawl. Everybody has to be herded into the cities, whether they want to or not. Take away your cars. You know, no more cars. We're all going to be the mode of transportation for everybody will be public transportation or hippity hops, or rusty old bicycles. Like, every American city to look like downtown Hanoi. Or Beijing. Have you seen downtown Beijing the last few years? Neither are the residents of Beijing. That's right, folks. The people who care about the environment least are the people that the green extremists admire the most. Which means, it's never, just like with Trumplicans, it was never about stopping Hillary. It was always about burning down the GOP. So it is with green extremists. It's not about the environment. It's not about saving the planet. It's about forcing communism on this country. That's what it's always been about. This is just another way to do it. I mean, who was one of the, I don't know about founding members, but who joined the climate change movement early on back in the 1990s? Remember? You remember this? This is a trivia question, pop quiz. You give up? Mikhail Gorbachev, the last dictator of the old evil empire, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. Yeah. You think this is coincidence? I mean, again, these are dots that are not difficult to connect, ladies and gentlemen. Now, global warming extremists have always faced a threefold challenge in coaxing, duping Americans into taking drastic action to save the planet. 6 septillion-ton ball of iron and silicates and somehow worth threatening it just by existing. I mean, who needs aliens? We've already got invaders here trying to destroy us. The enemy within. Remember, I've been saying in the Trump context, the enemy within is always more dangerous than the enemy outside the gate. Because with the enemy outside the gate, at least you know and recognize them and can recognize them as the enemy. But the enemy within, who pretends to be one of us, but has in mind our destruction, which is the more dangerous, do you think? All other things being equal. First, green extremists need to prove that man-made activity has a material impact on global climate, which they've never been able to do, and they never will until mankind gains that kind of technology. Second, they need to prove that this impact is harmful to human life, which they also haven't done. And third, they need to prove that the cure isn't worse than the disease, which they can't do either. But the economic sacrifices will be worth it. They're 0 for 3. 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out. But they never leave the plate. They always demand a 4th strike and a 5th strike and a 6th strike. They're worse than Lucy Van Pelt in that regard. Oh, give me a 4th strike because I'm a girl. Give me a 5th strike because I'm so pretty. Give me a 6th strike and you can grab my pussy. Whatever. Who knows? Maybe Charlie Brown grew up to be a dirty old man. I don't know. Now, unfortunately, the debate focuses almost entirely on the first point, the need to prove that man-made activity has a material impact on global climate, while environmentalists actively and energetically undermine their own case for the second and third points. Now, for the sake of argument, and this is total fantasy because it's not true, but just for the sake of argument, let's presume that the first assertion is true. Let's just assume that for the purposes of this discussion. That mankind has a material impact on global climate. Of course, if we could control hurricanes and dissipate them so that they never struck our coast. And that'd really suck for green extremists, but let's just assume. Let's also presume that fossil fuel use and other forms of human activity can raise the planet's temperature by well, I think it would take more than a few degrees, but let's just say, by the few degrees that many climatologists predict. After that, the prediction game gets truly dicey. In other words, let's assume this bullshit to look at the other bullshit. For example, the same Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change document that found that the world had likely entered the warmest decades of the last 14 centuries also found no significant observed trends in global tropical cyclone frequency over the past century. Indeed, regarding the droughts, storms, floods, smog model of climate alarmism, the document frequently stated that data are lacking and that previous dire assertions are no longer supported. That was in the fine print. As one commentator noted, the IPCC puts to rest general yet popular claims that climate change already results in increasing floods, droughts, or hurricanes, and invalidates claims that climate change already risks the above listed catastrophic scenarios, as such claims are both scientifically unsupportable and outside the scientific consensus. Settled science, anyone? But rest assured, disaster is coming, and so Americans are asked to make draconian economic sacrifices that will make no difference whatsoever on global climate. None. Zero, zip, nada, butt kiss. Wait, what? What was that? Is the environmentalist left really asking Americans to lose their jobs for no meaningful reason? All together now, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, they are! For example, the White House, the Obama White House, of course, delayed and then ultimately stopped the Keystone XL pipeline despite the fact that the state commissariat, their own state commissariat, declared that it would have negligible impact on the environment. In other words, there was no green reason not to build Keystone XL, and the Obama regime killed it anyway. Had nothing to do with the environment. Had everything to do with communism. Making sure that the Chi-Coms buy all their oil from the Canadians, not the United States. In other cases, the regime, the Obama regime, has pushed through costly regulations, unconstitutionally, I might add, that would reduce emissions by a total amount equal to less than 2 weeks of Chi-Com output over the next 15 years. Let's do a quick calculation. How many weeks is that? That's 1/390th of Chi-Com emissions. That's what these costly regulations that the Obama regime has despotically forced upon our country. That's the amount of emissions that's actually going to prevent, theoretically, in a best case scenario. 2 weeks worth of gargantuan Chinese emission output out of 780 weeks. 2 weeks out of 15 years. And it's going to cost in the hundreds of billions out of the already depressed United States economy. The Obama economy. That's shorthand, by the way. Now, the bottom line is that no American wants to lose his job or sacrifice his family's prosperity if it will not forestall an emergency that's always in the future. An emergency that's never quite dire enough to get a single celebrity, extremist, or government official to scale back his own extraordinarily high-carbon lifestyle. As the University of Tennessee's currently on suspension, Glenn Reynolds, a.k.a. Instapundit, is fond of saying he'll believe that a crisis exists when the extremists and alarmists start acting like a crisis exists. And I've said this seemingly forever, that the only reason that environmentalism gets any traction in this country, the only time it does, is during times of prosperity. Because it's, see, climate change, global warming, it's always theoretical. There's never any proof. It never manifests itself, which is why the green extremists have to go pointing to every single tropical storm, every fog bank, every hurricane, every weather, in other words, as being evidence of climate change. And the absence of weather as being climate change. Everything is evidence of climate change. They have to do that because they have no proof. But they know that most people are not climatologists, and so they'll buy it. And in times of prosperity, sure, I can be green, I can recycle. I can get a low flush toilet. I can be green. I can be economic or environmentally responsible because it doesn't impact them. It doesn't impact their lifestyle. But when it starts doing so, when it costs you your job, when it impacts your economic status, your lifestyle, like the sweet meteor of death, then all of a sudden it stops being theoretical and people say, bleep no, stop, jobs are more important. Now, part of that is human nature. I mean, even if climate change and all this alarmism and global warming and all that, even if it was true, you know human nature. Human nature never plans. It's not human nature to ever plan ahead. Nobody ever plans ahead. Nobody ever wants to think about worst case scenarios, so they just don't do it until it happens, and then, oh no, what are we going to do? And it's too late. But the climatologists, the chicken littles, the green extremists need to provide that evidence. Then they don't have it. Why do you think they manipulate and cherry pick data? I mean, if they had an overwhelming case for this, like the climatologists in the Roland Emmerich movies always seem to have, you know, in the movies, you know, someone like Dennis Quaid in The Day After Tomorrow, they find something that's just absolutely ironclad. We can't deny this. We gotta bring it to people's attention. We talk to the government. We gotta. Blah, blah, blah. In real life, there's never any such evidence. In real life, climate-geddon never happens. But they want us to think that it will, and it always works, but only up to a certain point, that point being when it starts impacting people's pocketbooks. And at that point, they say, back off. And do the green extremists listen? Has Barack Obama listened for 8 years? No. Because it's not about the environment, it's about the agenda. And it always was, it is, and it always will be. We always knew the Atlantic hurricane drought would end. Reasonable conclusion to draw, and it was proven correct over the past few days. Hurricanes have been hitting the American coast since before there were Americans. But as we pray for the victims and prepare to help the survivors, let's remember that there is still no reason to sacrifice what's left of American prosperity and American jobs for the sake of sheer speculation and elite virtue signaling. And, of course, communism. No one wants to go broke for solutions that won't stop climate change. Not when it actually starts impacting them.